Alrighty, folks. Welcome back. Good afternoon. Sorry about the delay. 401. Markets are closed. Now I've got a question for everyone. I see people posting in the profit section right now. Type a 1 in chat if you held your positions, and type 2 in the chat if you sold your positions. Could be sold, take profit. Let's see how many bulls we got out there and how many bears we got. See a lot of bulls. That's a lot of ones. Now the question is, did we make the right decision or not? We're going to need to, first of all, it's not that we need to see. It's going to obviously depend on, well, was that the right thing to do or not? Let's talk about this trade here. Well, if you were in this trade, today was your transition day. So if you're a 1 in chat, then I'm guessing that means if you're in this AL chart trade that you got new contracts here? Question mark? Because unless you had a long position, of course, towards like June or something, then okay, then you must be a 1 here, right? So otherwise you transitioned at here and you realized your gain. Not a bad day. Not a bad day at the office grabbing. A lot of these travels are near 500% if you get the at the monies, anywhere in the 1 to 2 month range. CCL over here. Now in terms of transitioning, this is of course coming towards the AAL chart. I don't think many people probably transitioned the same way. Maybe it was more of a take profit situation on some, but held the rest of the contracts. You didn't buy new contracts. In this situation, are you making the right decision? More than likely. It's very hard to go and sell this position until you see tomorrow, right? So whether you took some off the top here because if you saw the whole market, right? If you want to make a market decision, then absolutely. No problem there. Otherwise, there is nothing wrong with being a 1 in the chat right now, right? Now, there are some charts here where I'd be a little skeptical if you're a 1, right? There are certainly some charts. Let's just go on the market average first. Okay, well, let's take a look at the SPY. We were very close up to this trend line, and what did we talk about earlier? In terms of where the price was, this sort of melt-up situation. Now, we do get this scenario so many damn times that by now you guys know the drill, where you get this melt-up lunch and then you take profit into close. So in terms of what is this signaling? It doesn't really do anything. And so in terms of my overall presence, I don't really care about the selling. I know this is tech related, and the fact that our positions are up more than an equal amount compared to how much outflowed from here is a good sign, right? You look at these charts, this selling here, and then we just saw those travel charts. We know where the money went, right? We know where the money went. And so when you think about these things, it's very hard to get out of those positions when you can see the money. It's not a secret. Now, how bad is this move going to be in terms of tech? I mean, you've got the trend line coming in here. You get confirmation tomorrow. We're going to find out. We're going to find out tomorrow what exactly the market wants to do, because guess what? That's the last hoorah over here of a supply. There is not another supply other than what we generated before, so we could be on a wild ride over this way. If this breaks in, this is what we've been planning for. So those of you that just woke up and didn't know that we were short onto the tech side with possible straddle ideas if there was a breakout on some of these charts, for instance, Tesla, right? If Tesla broke out instead, we would take the long trade. Otherwise, we were short. And some of you guys just don't want to believe it. Some of you still are believers in this idea, in clouding your judgment on being believers on some of the other trades, when you can't have both. You can't just be like, well, you know what, I like Tesla, so these kind of situations. There is no, you can't half-ass your idea here and say, well, I like it, so it's okay. No, we've been talking about this. Now, the one the one defensive tech ticker, of course, none other than Facebook. The only ticker that makes sense to really get pounded. Now, first of all, before anyone gets us going here, it got pounded on Friday, right? It got pounded on Friday before the rest of the market. It led the market down, and we had already talked about the short. I just posted the chart to reinvigorate the chat, right? So in terms of what does this day mean? Well, usually you return to about halfway up this candle, right, the next day. That didn't happen today. So it's certainly getting beat up down here. Now, I want to prompt this before we go look at other positions. You can prompt this day tomorrow with being, well, we just lost over 2.5% on the NASDAQ. You're probably going to return to at least halfway in here somewhere, right? Are you going to come up here? This is where, when I prompted that gap question, what are the chances of gapping here? You've got sort of a double-edged gap situation where, well, you've got a gap down here because of the movement and how fast this is, and then you've got the gap idea of just returning to the historical sort of return, which this is the close. So technically, it would be up here. It would technically be up here because, again, this move of 2.5, you would be coming up into here. So when you start to put some of these things in context, there are some really wild sort of situations, and I think it's why you saw so much volatility here at close, is that people are betting on the same idea of what we brought up earlier. I know Mobsky brought up the spot chart, right? Look at the spot chart. It's over, I think this is like 11% spread from high to low. This is just a wild ride in here. This shit looks good. I'm a buyer down here. I mean, I was a buyer up here. This is again where you asked the question. If you're a buyer up here, well, you're certainly a buyer up down here then too, right? If you're willing to buy up here, you're certainly willing to buy down here. And the volatility is just, you got to remember when you're trading options, that spread that you see is your profit. That's your profit potential in terms of just a base, right? And so when you just pop off the top, when you just pop off the bottom here and you bounce, that spread that you just saw is now all below you, and you've got that whole base of support underneath you. There's some really crazy things I think that are going to come out of this move that, it's there's so many opposing ideas that, again, there is a connection, but they're not very well connected, because you look at some of these charts, it's all growth going into value, right? And it's the same story we always get, but we have a really hard time in terms of a market as a whole, not specifically us. As a market, we have a really hard time handling how to do that, because the market, yes, it's flowing from growth tech into value, and we can see it. 10% on a fucking American Airlines, right? That's a big move. But the market coming down in terms of the NASDAQ weighs us down. And I always talk about, you got to be able to drag this behind us. So this is now a weak link in terms of the chain, right? And you're only strong as your weakest link. Well, you're going to need to drag this big boy, which again, this is most of the cap in the market. You're going to have to drag that for this idea of going further. The idea that we had last week, that the market was signaling all-time high, it doesn't change on this side, right? Even with the small caps, and certainly with value, you look at those tickers, they're just gone, right? A lot of those are just gone unless they react to the broader market, which you could say that during close they started to react to them, right? That removal of demand. I would say the one thing here I typed into chat, there was a significant amount of volume in the market coming in towards close, like a significant amount. That is a level of supply. The demand hasn't changed. It's the level of supply that's coming in that's a significant amount. That can affect the entire broader market, right? And so tomorrow is definitely a big day in terms of understanding this week. And I think for a lot of you, I mean, I'm sure you had a wild day in terms of profit, right? Let's bring it over the profit section before we get anywhere else. And those of you heading out, obviously have a great night, have a great morning wherever. And I'll see you in the morning. But taking a look at the profit section, let's see. I'm guessing that everyone that's in here had a significantly higher number earlier, and now are questioning whether they made the right decisions or not. Be interesting to hear some of those thoughts. Brian with the plus 80, Met with the 25, Ekta with the, let's say, 0.88, so break even. Mobsky with plus 2%. He says much prettier at lunch, makes a lot of sense. Let's see, C-Trader with a minus 1,200. I'd be interested to hear where that was from. Tiger, obviously, we heard gloating in chat earlier. He's got 275 on the day. David, minus 16, break even on the day. Let's see, Wiz up 24 at one point, 2,400 at one point, then 700 at end of day. That's an awesome. Nice job, Wiz. And then we get the 1% from Chris. Looks good. Okay. Now, let's jump back over here. There's something I want to talk about that's important in terms of macros. Look at the dollar. This is why I didn't sell anything. I transitioned because I followed my rules. I didn't sell jack. I didn't sell anything. Now, where the volatility is, the fact that it's trending makes me feel comfortable with when I look at the dollar and I look at this and I realize we're not even close to this again, and we did this dance last week. You know what happens during this dance? You always want to be sort of the first one or you could say you don't want to be the first one dancing, but I like a little warm up, right? Like, fuck politics, let's dance, right? Let's get going. CCL offering, nice. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be fun. Well, there you go. That's going to probably help us out with our decision tomorrow. Now, also, it'd be curious to see what happens at open where everyone's buying up that liquidity at the same time, and then it ends up being a net gain because of it. That's volatility that might actually benefit long positions. So those of you with your long-term positions are probably going to get a bump from that. Don't forget that, right? You get that offering, and it seems like a loss in the short term, but it's actually maximizing your gains on sort of your right tail, right? And then let's see. Okay, yeah. So I'm talking about the macro idea, right? We think about these positions, right? We have to get out of these positions eventually, right? That's like the AAL chart. It's important to realize that transitioning here is a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer so that you can then make a new decision. You want to realize this gain and not say, well, you know what? Like, what would your thought process be when you're up here? You're at 25. You're up 25% on the underlying. You're at 500% on your contract. Same with CCL. Most of you are in like 500% range on those CCL calls. What are you thinking over here? Like, well, if I do not get 50% on the underlying, I'm not selling. Like, what are you actually thinking that would stop you from like taking profit on that to then transition into new contracts? Like, there's nothing you could convince yourself or me other than you just decided not, like, you just kind of made excuses for yourself, right? Of no, diamond hands. A lot of times this is really straightforward, and we have these levels on our chart for a reason, so that you can go home with a nice meal, right? And you're not eating, what did you guys say? Hot Pockets for $10 or something? Or no, you guys said like $1.50. So you're not eating $1.50 Hot Pockets, eating packets of hot dogs for dinner, right? Ramen. We realize our gains even though we push our positions, right? It's a double entendre, but it's certainly important. Now, let me take you through some of the meme economy. I know Brian mentioned this trade earlier. I did give a little bit of a warning in terms of those big OI numbers. You gotta be careful. Like those 10s, you gotta fuck the 10s on this chart. If you bought 10s, oh, you were the worst. Don't do that. That's bag hold territory. But anyways, on this chart, when this started to break through here, we talked so much about the support in that it's okay that it's a meme. The meme economy is one thing. It's important to realize why this is a good trade over here, and we've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. We wanted to take we took this trade, right? We took this trade. Yeah, we got out of it. We're not looking for this to be the case. We're actually looking for it to actually make a move. And look, after hours, it's at 670. It's up 3% after hours as well. This is not like a difficult trade, right? This is what every kid in their mom's basement is making for a trade, but for all the wrong reasons. We're making it for the right reasons, and we'll get out at our level, right? We'll probably, this is a ridiculous point to get to again, but if it trades up to its resistance, that's a little over 50% on the underlying. That's what? How many percent is that, guys? 1,000% on your contract? Are you going to complain? Why were the 10s? Okay, first of all, let's make sure we all understand this, first of all. Okay, why is buying... Oh, God, I don't even know why I do this stuff, to be honest with you. Okay, Why do we why do we not buy AMC $10 strike calls? First of all, it's 50% out of the money, okay? First of all, it's 50% out of the money, and I make fun of all of you for even buying 10% out of the money calls, right? If you're buying over 10% out of the money calls, you're just memeing at that point, and you just want to post a picture in chat, right? If you're buying over 10% out of the money, anything, I don't care what it is, then you're just memeing in gambling, right? That's just ridiculous. So 50% is already ridiculous. And then also, yes, the further you go, the more you're getting into the bag holders that still have those contracts, whether they're, I think it's really only Marches, right? It would only be Marches. And so if you're buying that, then you're just, you won't even make money. You actually won't even make money. So it doesn't even make sense. Just chill with the ridiculous numbers, right? Because you lose. It's like who did it earlier? Met said he's watched. So I'm not like shit on Met or anything, but for Mets CCL calls, right? He said 400% to 270, right? That means on this CCL move, where is it? On the CCL move, and I just want to put this into perspective for you guys, and this is how you know whether you're in good contracts or not. If you're in this position, right, and wherever you entered in here, right, I'm guessing Matt entered somewhere in here due to those numbers, and maybe he entered a little later and he got out of the monies, but the 400%, okay, you're up 400% here, and then it starts to pull back. You know what this number is? 5%. It lost 5% from the top. If you lose, if you're in contracts and then you're watching that you're up 400%, and then you watch from here to here is 5% on the underlying, and you lose 130%, that means your contracts are not the right ones. Those are not the right contracts. And what that means is you know you're not in the right contracts, and you need to take profit as soon as that move starts. After 1%, and you see that you just lost like 50% or something, you got to take profit on that, because it should be blatantly obvious when you look at that options chart or on the value itself that for 1%, 2%, and you see that exponential on your options, absolutely decimating your position. Yeah, you're in profit. You can't convince yourself though that 130% is okay to take for a hit. What about 130% gain on the 130% gain on another ticker that you gained? Right? You just bought something and it goes up 130% in 20 minutes. Is that a pretty good gain? Yeah, it's a pretty good gain. Is 130% loss acceptable? No, right? And so you got to keep the rules in place. You should never be losing that many percent in 20 minutes, right? That just means you got to take profit. And so for those of you that are in the same situation, realize what's going on in that moment, right? You gotta be self-aware that 130% on another trade, 130% is an awesome gain. 130% loss is an awesome fucking loss too. So, or a bad loss, right? Okay, let's see. What else you say? Okay, yeah. Let's keep it going. Now, over here, we have some charts to mention in terms of our travel mode. We talked about the intermediary sort of service providers for not only travel, but sort of tech-oriented sort of companies that are intermediaries. These charts did very well again. It's important to maybe go look back at these T-Com, Expedia, see where they are in relation. Those charts looked very good again today. And then also to mention again our idea of convergence. We got convergence in the entire travel sector, which is why, of course, we were really so hot on the trades last week anyway, and the week before, right? We've been making this trade for over a week now, since the Friday prior, right? So it's been a week and a day now that we've been in these trades, and some of these trades even longer, right? We started airlines at the beginning of this year. This isn't a new story for those of you that still have just been watching this unfold, and maybe you're taking hits on other trades. You're just not trying hard enough. You must be making the I don't have enough time excuse. Guess what? It's not going to fly this year. This year, for some of you that have been here for a while, it's wake up call time, right? It's wake up call time that, oh, I gotta go to work and I'm too busy. And listen, you've been here for 6 months now, and you're missing trades that you know you can make, and then you're taking trades that you know are bad, and you're still not following rules, and you're still not doing just fundamental things like putting in a stop or placing the right limit orders and those kind of things, and then you keep making you know what, I was just busy, I didn't have time to look at the charts. Well, then don't be trading the things that are fucking difficult. Trade simple stuff. Go trade the market ETF. Just go put your money in fucking bonds. Go put your money in Vanguard. You know how much you'd be up? And I messaged some of you, and I'm not, certainly not shitting on the people that messaged me earlier. If you put the money in, let's say over here, let's say in June you just started trading, you'd be up 30% right now. How many of you are not up 30% in the last 6 months? If you haven't gained 30% in the last 6 months, why don't you just put it over here, right? There's a lot of examples of this, and I want to make sure that if you are trying to actively trade, you need to beat the average. You have to beat the average to make it worthwhile. If you feel like you don't have, you're not making it, then you need to be realistic and then just change it, right? Trust me, I go through these times where I change up my style if I need to, right? I don't mean like in terms of the method, but in terms of my bias and everything. If something's not working, then just change it. It's okay to just change it, right? So again, you find yourself in the last 2 weeks really getting beat up. You need to see what other people are doing in here and maybe struggling with as well, and then figure out what you can do and maybe others can do to, if it's sort of going the wrong way. I don't know exactly. I know some specifics that I've talked to people. There's a lot more people doing better than worse. You got to remember that. There's a lot more people making gains than losing right now, not only in this Discord, but in the market. So even though this is down here, this is just a part of the process. Look at this move. Remember some of these things. I think sometimes we're trying too hard to keep those green days going, that we continue to, sometimes we compound mistakes by forcing ourselves to always be winning, when a lot of the times you take a little bit of a loss and you get a significant gain. Keep these ideas in mind. Those of you that are even winning, keep it in mind. Some of you that winning, you should just feel good that I'd say that, right? You should just feel good, but still, we should never be doing like this idea of, I know I'm getting sentimental and going on, but it shouldn't be, oh, this was a good day, this was a bad day. That kind of mentality, I think LSU was saying in chat, that kind of mentality, you can't go, oh, this was good, this was bad. Certainly, there's times when losing money fucking sucks, and making money is great. But if you let that affect every single decision you make all the time, you're never going to make money. It doesn't work that way. We have like 280, 260 something trading days a year. It's a fucking process, right? And again, it's been up this whole time. And so this is where, if you're not on this trend, at least, if your profit and loss does not at least look like this, then take some time to do some learning. Figure out what you got to do. Don't make the crazy difficult trades or anything. Keep it simple. Simple is usually better. I keep everything simple. We always talk about, what do we do here? We take something that's complex and simplify it by just drawing some fucking lines on a chart, man. That's all we do. And then when we get near that line, we buy it. If it gets near a line, we sell it. That's it. We keep it really simple. Options, we keep very simple. We're not going out there doing complex strategies. I straddle every now and then, but I make it aware. These kind of things, keep it simple. There should certainly be, a lot of you should certainly have, larger profits, but what's the best takeaway is when you realize and you learn from it, right? Some of you probably today realize that, oh, I could have transitioned this position, look to transition it, and through that taking profit, and as I'm looking to enter a new trade, I would have finished the day at, plus $1,000 instead of $100. I would have made money instead of losing money. Those type of things, you got to take that away instead of I lost $20 today when I could have made $1,000. Like, you need to look at what it is, and through that learning, guess what? It's sometimes what you'll learn in a day is worth more than the money you would have made in the day that you wanted to make, right? Let's say I made a certain amount of money today. A lot of the times I look at what I learned and say, you know what? I'm going to fuck about that money that I made today because I learned something today that's going to make me a lot more money tomorrow anyway. So you got to look for that every day instead of just the gain. And I think a lot of that, again, that's people try to say don't be emotional trading. I mean, sure, but what is that? Well, that's by not thinking about the dollar amount in terms of your P&L on the day, but thinking what you learned as a dollar amount for later, right? That's what it's all about. And so, something like, I'm looking at this chart right now. When we talk about trading on a trend and not trying to force something, this is the kind of chart that we love for the fact that there is only one way it's trading, and it will not lie to you in terms of where the price is going. It's going one way. If it's going to reverse, it's going to tell us, right? Now, you can't go put your whole portfolio on a chart that's going up, just like on these trades over here, right? You could not go put your whole portfolio here. You have to make multiple other trades. But by doing this on multiple trades and continuing to make the correct choices through just some simple rules, avoid those bad trades, make a few good ones, make a few great ones, it's going to add up. And through that, you're going to keep getting disciplined. And, again, a lot of the people in here went from bad strategies, came onto a better one, and have become disciplined, right? Everyone that's here every day, you've become disciplined. You've got a routine, right? And just seeing that it clicks, eventually it starts to click and you start to get things, right? You got to keep with it. You can't start to let some of those things creep in where you're making dumb choices because you just want to. It's like something instinctually just triggers in your head, like, oh, let's go make this dumb trade. It's dumb, right? A lot of times it's dumb. I do want to mention some of the charts from yesterday I posted. Again, enough of the spiel and stuff, but when we look at the charts I posted yesterday, a lot of these are very straightforward. I'm going to mention the SID chart again. I said this morning that I didn't post the pennant that I saw here from Friday on Thursday, so we missed the Friday move. And so I do like this ticker and also the sector. And so when this opened up, yeah, it's only up 30 basis points today. This was a trade to take from open, as I had talked about at the open, because there's so many different ideas here in terms of convergence in this sector and just the ticker itself with the trend. Yeah, I don't really give a shit what the company is. I don't even know what it is. And that turned me off, and I didn't go trade it the first time. Charts like this is where that part of me turns off from the idea because of some other reason when it just should be purely price oriented, right? And I should not be going, well, this is like a dumb company. It's only $6, so what do I care? The options they're perfect. Everything's perfect. So it's silly for that mentality, and you don't make money because of that. So this is a good example. ET, again, this is so rules based that I know a lot of you saw this and took advantage of this today. Again, what do? We trade in the open, right? We trade in the open. It doesn't get much clearer. It doesn't get much clearer, and this is where, again, the more charts you look at, and the more of those charts that you prepare for that have an opportunity. And again, it could just be close to a support, close to a resistance. It could be a chart I just posted. If you plan for a move to happen, so for instance, last night you saw this chart and you planned for if a breakout happened, you would have hit the buy button at open, right? But if you never looked at the chart until later when someone else mentioned it, it was pretty damn hard to buy it, wasn't it? And so this is, again, where the more you look at, you got to commit these things to memory, right? Those of you that watch me on the Google sheet when I'm typing this shit in, I don't just do that so that you guys have a fucking table to look at. You guys can look at the chart. I type it into the Google sheet, and so again, every single short-term pattern, everything, I manually type into the Google sheet. So whether it's ET with, you get this pattern here, and so you'll see me typing in bottom triangle 219, target 810 to 830, 32 days. And then if it's say ET with an inside bar on the day, it's at $6.80, and I'll type in all this stuff for every ticker, hundreds of tickers, right? All the time, I commit it to memory. So last night or over the weekend, I think I did like 80 or so different tickers that I typed in. Commit all those to memory so that when the open happens, you can just see the number and Now, you don't need to do that many. You don't have you have a lower capital, your number in terms of what you need to look for. And so you shrink that down to more manageable. But again, it's going to require work, and you can't just get by with doing a few things, right? It's never going to work, right? There's way too many players out there, and especially now trying to take advantage I think there's a reason why some of these newer charts have really taken off. It's because people have really upped their games. People have really stepped up in terms of trading. And before, maybe I post a chart, I post a chart like this and then it breaks down the next day, right? Maybe I post this MGM chart from the weekend and then today it comes back to halfway through the candle and then it breaks out, right? We talk about that a lot, where you get a big buy day and then you get the historical retracement to halfway. A lot of these charts now, we have to start to maybe think that maybe the market itself has upped their game, because you post one of these charts and the next day it's following with that trajectory, right? And it actually makes it harder to buy, right? It almost makes it that you have to start preempting trades, which we've been doing, like the X trade. We've been preempting that trade so much because everyone's seeing it, right? So we need to all continue to improve through this. And there's a lot of good examples, right? There's a lot of good examples out there of ideas that, if you're not looking at as much and you're not working as hard, you're gonna get left behind. And left behind is in losing your damn money, right? Losing your damn money. So keep those ideas in mind. Now, in terms of macros and everything tomorrow, obviously looking at the dollar, if the dollar keeps breaking down, then gold is going to continue, of course. And so it's going to be interesting to see if this move, the only time we would take the gold trade again is if it breaks this trend line. Now, it could start to happen towards tomorrow, so we're going to watch that. Again, the dollar is tied more to value, so if the dollar keeps going, it's correlated to a positive move. So we're going to be watching that very closely tomorrow, more than we did, of course, really today. Now, when we look at the Bitcoin chart, here's a good example of why we don't trade Bitcoin. We bought in and we've just held the position. It's important to see that this move is not getting really any. It's not getting a correlation to any other market right now. There's no equity correlation. There's no dollar correlation. It's doing its own thing. This is putting it on this trajectory here. It's just putting it on the trajectory. At this point, again, we need to start to sharpen our idea. Those of you that took this position with me, again, if you bought somewhere in here around the 9,000 mark, and you're looking to push to 100,000, we're on a much faster schedule. You got to start to think about some of that. Some of you that, I talked about it over here. I put about 10% of my portfolio into Bitcoin. That's 1,000% gain. You got to start to think about some of that, because even now we're almost at 600. We're over 600%. You got to start to think about some of that, especially if you have a very large allocation. You got to start to think about some of that, because if you're pushing over $500,000 on some of this stuff, you got to start to think about some of this, even if it's like six figures or something. If it's more than most of your other portfolio, you need to start to think about that, because again, there's going to be opportunities that I'm not saying start to take profit now. I'm just saying that there's going to be a point where the points in terms of risk and reward that you're going to gain getting closer and closer this way are going to get to a point where it's going to be better to take some of that and put it back into the equity market, right? Or to just take it out altogether, right? Because yes, this is a supply and demand oriented idea, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it's just a trade. It's just a trade, and if the risk reward is no longer there, then we need to allocate that somewhere else. So that's where start to price in some of these ideas. Again, I'm going to be pushing this shit, even if it corrects all the way down here. This is my last line. If it breaks this line somewhere, then I'll exit it. Yes, I will literally let it come all the way down here over the next few months before I would take profit on it, but that would be my last line of defense. So keep that idea in mind. Some of you that have a larger position, if you have a smaller position, who cares? Don't worry about it. Push that stuff, because again, this is always going to appreciate. In terms of the stock to flow model, which at this point it's proven that there's really nothing you can do. That's literally the model that it's trading on. It's just going to be like gold. It's going to always appreciate into the future. So you hold it for 10 years, it'll be up in 10 years. It'll be up in 5 years, right? This idea. But we want to get the gains now to utilize that capital. Just wanted to make the note, it's not correlated to Jack. If Elon can tweet and everything else and move it, then let's forget about it. So keep that in mind. In terms of tonight, I'm do want everyone to be mindful of there's probably going to be a lot of bearish short-term patterns. Again, the bearish short-term patterns, I'm just posting that because I see the candle. That does not mean it changes the bias of the chart. If you go look at those bearish short-term patterns I posted over the weekend, a lot of those are green today. Why? Because they're just bullish charts in general, and you're only going to get a bearish short-term pattern if it's coming from an uptrend, right? Just like the bullish charts, those bullish short-term patterns I post are only from downtrends. Keep that in mind because that's what those bullish candles mean, is it comes from a downtrend. If it's a bearish one, that means the chart's been uptrending, and a lot of times those charts are bullish. So be careful. If I have a big list tonight, don't go freaking out that you need to sell those positions. Just keep that in mind. There's probably going to be a lot of tickers. I am going to post bullish and bearish charts again tonight. Those of you that are not taking advantage of the short position, I would say just try to buy a put tomorrow on anything, even if it costs $10, right? Just try to do it, because I think a lot of the times it's not until you really get your feet wet doing some of these things that you feel, obviously, until you do it, you're not going to feel comfortable. But, just imagine you shorted this here, right? Just imagine some of these things and go do the calculation and realize that, oh, okay, it's the same thing. I hit the buy button. You got to be able to make trades like this, right? You got to be able to make a trade like this, and especially those of you that like a ticker and you feel sort of dirty for shorting it. You can't feel that way either. So you just got to get out of the way, right? It's like getting a fear out of the way. It's like having sex for the first time. Just get out of the way, right? So maybe for some of you, that's going to be your goal for over tonight. What can I short tomorrow? Probably something tech oriented. We got a few ideas out there. You know where the level is. Figure that out and find out how you're going to short it. That's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. The video is most likely going to be up tonight for what I've talked about in terms of IB. It's going to go over the orders from overnight and everything else. I've already talked about it. And so watch out for that tonight. It'll probably be closer to, later at night if that's coming out tonight. So enjoy your night, your evening, your morning, wherever you are. I had a lot of fun today, guys. It looks like it's going to be a really fun week, a lot of volatility. So I'll see you guys in the morning. We'll talk a lot in the morning about some of the volatility and what we're looking for based on what we see in pre-market. So see you then. Enjoy.